Hi everyone, welcome back to the Sunday Social. We're doing another Q&A today. We've got a little topic. We'll talk about Hublot to kick us off, but we definitely want some questions coming in, so keep them coming in the chat here. Well, we've got a full panel tonight. Patrick, Pocket Watch time. You are in the hot seat. What watch are you wearing?
Well, let me throw off a special thanks to Mike Pearson from Zodiac, because I'm wearing my Zodiac Meteorite, but I've got a new addition to it.
Oh yeah,
orange
PVD, the PVD buckle.
PVD buckle. So my big complaint when I bought it, which it's not their fault because I just bought the orange strap, but they only include stainless steel buckles on their straps, and I guess if they sell watches that aren't stainless steel, it just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. So he was able to scrounge around and he found me one and sent it off to me. So thanks, Mike.
Awesome. Seiko Todd, you're up next.
All right. I'm one half of the 36,000 club today. There we go. See, I found the trick is you just got to completely get my goofy face out of the camera and it works great. So here's my Zenith 1990s Rainbow Flyback chronograph running at 36,000 with that date. Hey, Pete, look where the date is.
Exactly the right place.
Exactly the right place, evidently. But yeah, I love this watch. It's a great size. It's slightly less than 40 and a lot of presence and stealthy at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Pete, you're up next. What are you wearing?
I am wearing the Mueller Glasuit M99 City on a sort of semi-integrated bracelet. I'm not sure if you can see there, but it's got this kind of weird little horn thing in the middle, which means you're stuck with the bracelet. Not normally a bracelet guy, but in this case, I don't have a choice.
Mark, you're up next.
And I have an Orion Calamity Drab, the green dial watch that had a green dial before green dials were a thing. Little micro brand watch, and very nice.
Awesome.
What color is the bezel on that? Is that also green?
Yeah.
So it's green on green, the original Hulk. Look at that.
And it's a brushed ceramic to make it a matte.
Nice.
Ceramic.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering. It looked matte, so I was kind of figuring it out. But neat.
Cool. Todd, you're up next. Todd V.
I'm wearing the award-winning Sega Design Z Series.
There you go. Yeah.
I didn't think, I saw these so often in Amazon, and I was like, oh, what is this brand? What is this brand? Until you reviewed that one, and then Dave Sharp was speaking so well of the brand, and I'm like, you know what? I'll give it a try. And it is an extremely comfortable watch for what it is. It's a shockingly fun watch to wear.
Awesome. Well, I've got one watch that I've been wearing, and then a very important watch that I need to show. But usually about this time, my audio glitches out, so you'll bear with me. So first of all, I'm actually wearing my little Grand Seiko there, my 1969 Grand Seiko High Beat. Put it on a NATO, might be sacrilege, but I'm going with it. But
it is.
But I have to say, this week I'll try not to get emotional here. I was one of the very unfortunate YouTubers to be selected to launch the Spaghetti Scametti watch. This is the watch brand of the year. If you're not familiar with them, I will be doing a review of it. You should check out Ben's Watch Club. He's the founder behind this groundbreaking brand. It might look like it's come straight from AliExpress, but that's the kind of thing with it. It's a stealth wealth watch, and the good thing is, because it looks a bit like a Royal Oak, I can pull like a silly face in the thumbnail and be like, Royal Oak for $200 or $67 or whatever they are. So watch out for that. My review of this is the most important watch release of this year.
Wow.
Well, speaking of important, excuse me, sorry. Keep the questions. I was choking on my own lies. Sorry. So speaking of watch releases of the year, I've not spoke to the panel about this yet, but I wanted to show the Hublot watch. So Hodinkee did a Hublot watch. And I think there's something quite ironic about it. So they've made, apparently Hublot used to make, or they'll give away plastic watches when you take in a Hublot watch for service. So here's an example of one. So you send your Hublot into service, and they send you this plastic one as like a loaner, saying, "Hey, while we're servicing your watch," and it very famously says "not for sale" on this. Now, apparently, people did sell them, but Hodinkee then took that inspiration and created a watch with Hublot. And then, ironically, I think what they thought was being ironic was putting "not for resale" on the dial. This isn't plastic. This is titanium, and they were $7,900. And I don't know how many they had, but they've sold a lot of them. But
Really?
yeah, well, look, it's sold out now. I don't know whether this. What I think is ironic is they put this "not for resale," which is a play on the actual one that had "not for sale" on it. But Hodinkee, I feel that they're culpable in this. In this world of making watches that go straight on eBay. But what does the rest of the panel think? I've talked too much.
I start with the watch. It's perfectly fine. I quite like Hublot's. I quite like this design. It's a perfectly acceptable thing. I think Hodinkee is one of the least reflective and self-analytical media companies in the universe. A couple of years ago, they ran a story on all the different ways that other people were trying to deal with, the problem of flippers and getting in. They spoke about what Corona was doing and what Ming was doing, and they spoke about all these things that other people were doing to try and get on top of this problem. Never once in that article did they recognize that we are one of the major causes of it and that we are choosing to do absolutely bugger all about the issue. And this watch just screams, and that little "not for resale" just totally screams. Either they are totally unreflective and don't even realize where they're at, or they know exactly where they're at and screw you all.
I think that's a fair comparison, isn't it? I mean, that's a fair a fair observation, I should say.
And it's probably both. That's what worries me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's quite the investment, that isn't it? $7,900 for titanium on a rubber. I mean, I do like that design, that Hublot design. If I would ever get a Hublot, it would be that design. But the classic fusion. One of my bosses at work actually has the normal one of these. It does look good. It does look good. But anybody else have an opinion on this one?
Well, my classic take is just I don't like gimmicks, and putting that "not for resale," it's just a gimmick. I mean, I'd rather them just put a giant Hodinkee badge on there, which would still be pretty horrible, but at least I could say, okay, it's double signed. Kind of like Pete said. I mean, the watch is fine. The watch is great. I mean, I'm not that big of a Hublot hater as the rest of the world is. They make expensive watches, but guess what? They're all expensive. So, they're not really hurting my feelings about it. I think it's a pretty watch. I just, the joke, the gag, the gimmick, it's just not for me. But I completely agree with Pete that I think it's hilarious if they intended it that way, that we know that our Hublot watch is going to completely tank on the secondary market. So it's, quote, "not for resale." That's pretty hilarious. Dumb, but hilarious.
Yeah. So I'm with the rest of you. I've always liked, I'm not a Hublot fan. I kind of ignore them mostly. There's just not my thing, but especially for the price. But the classic fusion, I like that. I like that design too. I mean, this is their first one they came out with, more or less. I mean, the essence of the design, right? And I'm looking over here, and just the regular black dial one. That's the legitimate watch. It's a good looking watch. It's not too big. It's probably, and on the secondary market, it's probably a reasonable price. But I think that this watch represents exactly what Pete talked about in one of his recent live streams that he's done, where this watch represents zero value, none. There is no value in this watch. Therefore, it's pure luxury, and people must have it. And that's probably why they sold out of it.
Yeah.
What does the Classic Fusion actually cost if it doesn't have Hodinkee's name on it?
Oh, that's actually a good. That's actually a good. Good. Oh, sorry, I'm going all right here. That's actually a good question. Let's have a look.
While you're doing that, I'm kind of with Seiko Tada and Patrick. I don't hate them. I just once you're at that price point, there's way more other things I would be looking at. It's just not design style. It's not my style.
Oh, like Breguet, or something that represents true watchmaking.
Well, even if it's going to be like a masculine watch like this, I feel like you can get into Panerai. Like there's just,
Look at that. It's the same price. 7,000. Oh, that's 8,200. So for the. So
well, listen, if you really want to get one for a good price, I see a ton of the Hublot Classics on Chrono 24.
Yeah, 30.
I'm looking at like $3,000.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so new actually it's the same price, 7,900.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you went with the non-Hodinkee one, that's interesting, isn't it?
So in the secondary market, now you're talking about something that's like, okay, now I'm looking at that price point differently.
Yeah, here's one, Hublot Classic with a blue dial. Actually looks pretty darn good for $1,495.
Okay.
Wow.
And you can probably negotiate.
Yeah.
If you're going to major on negative space, why does it have a date, irrespective of where that date appears?
Because otherwise Sam wouldn't buy it.
Why,
exactly.
Yeah.
Why does it have a date? And if you're going to try and match the color of the date ring to the dial, do a better job. If it didn't have a date and it was just that gray, I'd go for it. But that, with so much negative space, which is rare to see, why does it have a date on it? That's a shame.
No, I like it. I mean, I wish it had. I know that isn't a thing, but I don't necessarily like those sterile dials that don't have markers.
That's why I'm saying negative space, because there's no minute track or anything like that. So if you're going to push a design element, really work that design element. And a very crude date at 3:00 kind of spoils it.
Yeah.
At least with the Hublot, though, you can get most of your date markers or your hour markers from the bolts, so you can kind of tell a little bit. But I agree. I want marks.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, should we answer a couple of questions? Bill K is asking if any of us went to wind up in Chicago. I don't think any of us went, did we?
No.
I was thinking about it, but I did the nice family thing, and I went and saw my brother instead. And well, I should have gone to Chicago.
Yeah, I was a bit under the weather this weekend, so I'm glad I didn't. But we didn't go to wind up. But Todd, you went somewhere cool, didn't you?
Yeah, I went to the National Association of Watch and Clock Collectors in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where the museum exists, and they had a huge symposium on watchmaking and all sorts of classes. I did a Horology 101 class, and I successfully put my Unitas movement back together. It was running before I did it, and it was running after I did it. So unlike my poor NH35s around here that are dead, but that have not successfully been put back together. But I bought a bunch of tools very inexpensively. They had a huge, lots of vendors. There had to have been 100, 200 vendors there. And it was spectacular talking. I got to talk to Roland Murphy from RGM for a while and try on some of the RGM watches he had there. And talk about how to decorate a dial. RGM is one of the best in terms of using rose engines to create the dial. So I got to talk to him some, and some other watchmakers. This was a really, really good show. The public was invited. It only cost me $10 to go in. It cost me $26 for the class and $10 to go into the mart during the general public. Wow. And there were some watches that were close to being bought. There was an original 1970 Pan Europe with a caliber 12 in it. that really was tempting. There's a parking lot Bulova with the same, Project 99 caliber 11-12 movement in it. Actually, I think that was a 14. Anyhow, but there were some really great vintage watches that were tremendous. And I was showing Patrick that there had to have been 18,000 pocket watches there for sale. So yeah, definitely worth it for any of you guys that are listening that can ever get to Pennsylvania when they do the national. This is the national one, so it had a symposium that talked about the Omega fraud.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, that's quite fresh in the mind, isn't it?
Yeah, it did. It had a couple experts, a couple Breitling, like from the company. Breitling had a big booth there, and they had a like their director of what operations was there. Ben, shoot, I just lost his last name. The famous collector and blogger Ben. Oh gosh, I can't think of his. Just lost me. He was there talking about it a lot too. During the question and answer session and that sort of thing.
So it really rocked through an entire industry then. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was very minute details too. Like you would go to a symposium for a professional symposium of any sorts. Like they had a whole class on how to do waterproofing better, and they had
No, I meant the Omega. The Omega thing actually has rocked through the industry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If even there's a symposium at an event like that on it.
It was an hour. I mean, they talked about it really for, well, not all of it for an hour, but it was a huge piece of the hour talk that they had.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Well, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Okay.
Well, next, sort of following on from the Omega thing, was it Watchbox or one of the UK companies that said up to half of the Rolex watches they get are fake? People try and sell them. It was a huge number.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Watchbox said that it was reported. I think were they speaking on a podcast or something? Yeah, that a very large percentage of the watches that get issued that people try to sell to them are fake. Of course, the really interesting thing would be what percentage of those did the owners know versus not know?
Oh, Watchfinder. Thank you, Sam D. Watchfinder. Yeah,
that's true, isn't it? Because if you've been given it as a gift or you've bought it from somebody else and you know very little about it, then maybe a lot of people got burnt the first time.
Yeah. Or I'm also thinking all those people out there who's my dad passed away and I've now got his Rolex type thing. I suspect there's a fair chunk of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. During the event, the main sale event in the main auditorium, I was looking at a couple watches, and the gentleman there, big Rolex, like vintage Rolex Submariners, they had like 20 of them or something like that. Just beautiful watches. And two guys came over with Datejust that one guy got it in a trade with, he bought like a G-Wagon from somebody, and part of the payment was, I don't understand, but it was like one of those things. Here, take these two Datejusts, and he had the boxes and he had the Datejust. He brought it over, pulled the covers off or pulled the case bags off, and the guy was looking at them underneath, the loop, and he's like, he didn't want to tell him it was fake, but he was like, yeah, there's another Rolex expert over there. Go talk to him to verify. Yeah, and I was like, oh man,
Oof. Yeah, it's a lot of chunk of change. Well, should we go to some questions then? So Sam's asking, which vintage watch would you love to see revived? One that hasn't. It's hard to think of one that hasn't been done. Who wants to kick us off there?
Well, I've got one, and it's inspired by your Japan watch, Sam.
Oh, yeah.
I really love the classic, Grand Seiko VFA, which you might have to pull up for the audience out there. VFA just stands for very finely adjusted, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, very finely adjusted, but I just like the case shape of that model, and it's just kind of that top right one. So,
actually, that's mine. I think. Is it here? This one? No, maybe not.
Or, I mean,
But it's
pretty
very
similar.
similar.
It's just the VFA's got a little bit of like an angle line down the center, and the area between the lugs kind of has a bit of a connector. And I've always thought it was just a very good looking watch. And those pictures there are pretty boring. Kind of in real life, when you sort of see the angles, it pops a little bit better. But I've always just thought that was a really nice classic design, and if they brought that case back, I would not be disappointed with Grand Seiko.
Yeah, I think I saw one of those at the Seiko Museum. I'm going to be doing a video on the Seiko Museum. I've just been under the weather the last couple of days, but I will do one. But who wants to go next? What should we like to see come back?
I'm tired of. I think what? None. I'm going to go flat out and say none. The watch, the watch revival I want to see is the watch revival that doesn't happen. We're done. We are full. There are no more revivals to be done.
Yeah, just let them. They had their time. They just let them go.
Yeah. If you're just now thinking about doing it, sorry, Balak, you missed out.
Well,
moving swiftly on.
I mean, does anybody else have one? Because I suppose we could actually talk about. That was a great question, Sam. By the way, does anybody have one? Because if not, I think we should talk about the tag.
I just need to tell Pete about a movie review guy that he'll probably love, because all he ever does is make fun of movies now, because, as he said, they're all revivals. Like, no one's come up with a new movie in over a decade. Just everything's like a rehash of this and that. And you're right, in watches and in movies, it does get a little bit old, even though I'll make a couple exceptions. I'm not as stern no as Pete is, but I get it.
Well, I'm thoroughly with Pete, except the fact that when Omega revived Speedmaster Mark II, I did like that, but that was 10 years ago. And it was, not a popular revival, but I don't know a lot about vintage watches, and a lot of the vintage watch revivals that I see are just dull. So I'm thoroughly with Pete. I don't see anything good in revival watches at all anymore. Please do something new. At least
I think you're safe. I think you're safe with Pete anyway, because the cutoff is now. He said we're full now, so you're good.
Yeah, so Tag just got it in under the wire here. Yeah. So I haven't asked the panel about this either, but this is the rebirth of the skipper, the Heuer skipper, although now it's called the Carrera Tag Heuer skipper. Originally, the skipper was more common, because I remember the skipper being more like this, but apparently the very rare ones were in the Carrera case. And look at that, that's going for 125,000 US on Chrono.
No way.
So they revived it in a Carrera case, except it's got the small seconds and thankfully the date. But at $6,900. But yeah, I guess I like it. I like it a lot. I think if it was a bit cheaper, I might even be lusting after it a little bit more. But what did everybody else think?
I liked the one previously. I think we talked about it before. I don't really go for this sort of yacht timer configuration, but I love the Carrera case and everything about the style of it. There was a blue one that was, I can't remember the model, but it was just a Carrera chronograph. I'd like it better than this.
Yeah.
Buy a Studio Underdog instead.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel like that.
It does. And
my simple answer is, I'm okay with a pop of bright color, but it just, something about it just doesn't work. I mean, they're trying to be serious but having fun, and I just think that the yin and the yang don't really go well together. So I am a solid no on this one.
And what other chronographs could you buy at $7,000?
Yeah,
not many that are better than this. I absolutely love this watch.
Oh, really? Yeah. So
yeah, I think right now, as of this date, Tag is far and away the most interesting watchmaker going around. No one else even comes close to being as interesting as what they're trying. And I think this is with the glass box that we saw at their last big release, the glass box Carrera case. Yeah, that was that was the first time I think we've ever seen a fusion between Tag and Heuer. So Heuer is like a glass box locked in a cage, never to be updated brand. But when Tag gets involved with it, it can do something really interesting. And with the glass box that they did a couple of months ago, they finally nailed it. They finally found a way to contemporize the otherwise fairly mid-century mundane Heuer designs and make them more interesting, make them more alive. And I absolutely love this watch. This is, I'm finding I'm getting more and more interested in Tag across the board, and I have a suspicion this could be my first one.
Yeah, so Orange Hand actually says, tried the glass box Carrera on the other day. It lives up to the hype. So good on the wrist. I
couldn't agree more. It is a comfortable, light. It's like a perfect everyday watch.
Well, let's find that.
I tried it on in Vegas.
Is it the Is it called the glass box, or is that the nickname?
No, it's just that's the nomenclature people use for it. But it's like Sumo as a nickname. But it's the nickname that Tag's been using, so you can probably find it.
Oh, here we go. So I know this is going to offend Mark for putting up. There's two Hodinkees I've shown already.
That one is gorgeous. See, that one just kills the yacht timer style to me. This one's beautiful.
Is this what's the damage on this one? Is this another 6,000 something?
Yeah, not cheap.
I can't actually see the price somewhere, but yeah, we're probably around 6,600 US or something. Yeah, no, it looks nice.
I like it. I'd love the dial. I think you're right. I think in some ways, I think Breitling is doing some interesting things now too. Pete, I know you're a big Breitling guy, but I love the dial on it. I love the blue color. I like the new Skipper because I like the old one. But to me, what I would do, in really looking at realistic prices for Skippers, if I really wanted one, I could get one on Chrono 24 for around the same price. About $7,000. That one for 125, 367. I don't understand that at all. But
yeah, I can't actually. There isn't actually another one on Chrono, so it's only the actual. So this is the Autavia case.
Yeah, the Autavia case ones. You're right, which I prefer actually a little bit.
There was only about 150 of the original Carrera cases actually made.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, okay, so it's rare.
That's true.
Awesome.
And there's a lot going on the dial. Like there's so many layers of the way they structured that dial. It's not just a flat dial. It's very interesting to look at.
Oh, the glass box.
Yeah, I think it's in a way it's a watch which I suppose I'd ask you, Sam. You were saying you struggle to think of paying this much for a Tag.
Yeah.
Do you see Tag as a legitimate Tudor competitor? Should they be priced the same as a Tudor?
Oh, that's I think that's a good question.
This is a legitimate in-house movement too. This is not like the usual.
Yeah, I mean this one definitely looks more sophisticated in design than the Tudor.
No, just across the board, just thinking of them as brands, because I think for a lot of people, they just look at the brand. They go, I wouldn't pay that much for a Tag. I wouldn't pay that much for a whatever. And I'm just thinking across the Tag's big problem is that people just don't think that they are as good as they really are. And that was my question. If a Tag and a Tudor sitting side by side, you don't know much about them, would you expect them to be about the same price, or would you expect the Tudor to be a bit more?
I'd expect them to be. It is an interesting question, that, because I don't know. Growing up, like where Tag, when I grew up, Tag was the one you wanted, not Rolex. Like Rolex was kind of, people on golf, playing golf wore Rolexes. Rolex was like you retire and you get a Rolex. It wasn't seen as, I don't think, as hip as it was like now, where the Submariner and everything. So Tag was the one to have. So I think I grew up, and I feel like maybe it was, for me, was perhaps left in the 80s. I don't know. To be honest, I haven't owned a modern tag. I've got a friend, James, who lives in Australia actually. He all he does is collect tag watches. He adores them. So maybe I need to give one a go. But yeah, I don't know.
I think if you ask the general population who aren't watch geeks, they'd think the tag was worth more. I don't think Tudor has the track. I don't think Tudor has the traction in the general populace as it does in the watch community. You know, it's not like Rolex. You know, people are like, "What's it?" You know, there's still what's a Tudor. I think, at least around my area.
And I'd also say that in the general watch community, those people that do buy Tudors aren't buying the really good ones that we all think about. When we all think about Tudor, we're all thinking, you know, black bays and getting METAS certification and, you know, that sort of thing. But if you look at what they mostly sell, it's things like that 1926 and pretty basic, very, very affordable entry level watches. And I think one of what I suppose where I was heading is I have a suspicion that when watch people think of Tudor, we think of their best stuff. When watch people think of tag, we think of their worst stuff.
Fair enough.
Fair.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, also the actual, you know, tag as a company, I think in recent times as well, where tag was almost gifted to the son of the guy who owns LVMH, as if it was some kind of like, you know, like oh, here you go, have a play with this watch brand and see what you do with it. And the guy was like, what, 25 when he took it over, and then they started coming out with like the Mario watches and stuff like that. That to me was like, is this a brand that's just some kind of rich kid's folly now, or are they really trying to, you know, they're really trying to make a statement? It's clear with these chronographs that they are, but that definitely, I think the last couple of years, certainly for me, that you know, the way that the company was kind of going and you know.
Yeah. See, with the Mario thing, I was thinking like the thing that I think they were trying to tap into is there all these other properties are taken, right? Mickey Mouse, Snoopy, but they wanted a nostalgic thing. People who are, you know, 45 and under would be like, oh man, I love Mario and that whole universe. And I think it was just this is an available property that we can jump on. Yeah,
perhaps.
And AP rocked the Marvel, and that's just a gift.
That's true.
People love those. So
yeah. I mean, I'm a fan of Super Mario as well. But anyway,
my sort of quick and simple take on that is just, I kind of skipped the tag phase. I mean, I always hear that watch people supposedly like tag as like an introductory. You walk into it, and you know, your first luxury watch is a tag, but tag's just always been kind of irrelevant to me. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, to me, that watch that you guys are gawking over looks to me like every other Carrera I've ever seen. And I feel the same way about the Moon watch. Like, they're all the same to me, and thus they just kind of go over my head, and I go, okay, I don't care. And so I just never really fell in love with them. And until they make something that kind of, you know, checks the, ooh, that's really special box, they're still just kind of out there. But I will say, I actually give their brand more credit than I do Tudor. So I think the name tag sounds better and maybe has more heft to me than Tudor, because I don't know, I like Tudors, I own some, but I don't really respect the brand.
Heresy. Get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
But you own some, but you don't respect the brand.
They're good watches, but I do kind of just see them as the, you know, I just made a silly video on the pocket watch, so who knows who's going to watch it, but it's my first Elgin watch. And Elgin made more pocket watches than all the other American watches, but I don't like the brand. And so the question is, why did I buy this one watch I bought? And I bought it because it's the one Elgin, or the one type of Elgin, that said, ooh, that's special. Because all the rest are boring. And that's kind of how I feel about tag, and I kind of feel about Tudor. You know, unless they throw in a weird metal or something that makes them sort of unique, they're just humdrum. And I don't mean it as a bad thing. It's just they don't have wow factor. And if a watch doesn't have a big wow factor, it just doesn't wow me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably buy a Tudor. I don't know. I mean, I'll look into tag a little bit more. Maybe I've been more, projecting a bias on them slightly. Okay, well let's go back to our questions here. So Boracic Time says exactly how awful it makes 330. Sickening induced, rage inducing, crime against good horology style and taste, or D, simply an abomination. I've tried to be objective. I like a date at the 430.
It's a C for me, Boracic Time.
Yeah, no, it's just, and I've forgotten. Ron Swanson, is that the guy from Parks and Recreation? It's simply the correct place for the watch for you could. It doesn't matter how you analyze it, what algorithm you run, you just always end up saying 430 is the right place, with one possible exception. Very rarely, I've only seen one watch that ever did it. For lefties like me that wear your watch on the right hand, the 730.
Yeah.
But I've only ever seen one watch with a 730 date.
Oh, I love 430. I only don't like it in the watch you just showed, where you've got the big numerals on both sides of it. So I'm more
like it tucked in a little.
Well, I'm more of a stick dial with the date. It's kind of number. It's almost too cluttered. So with a stick dial or with just an indice, I'm okay with it. With big, blocky Arabic numerals with an Arabic date, it might get a little too much.
Yeah.
6 o'clock is the best place ever.
Okay, so let the record reflect. Patrick wants a Roman numeral date.
Oh dear. Okay, so next let's have a look who we've got questions. Somebody's asking us, Sympathy for Bezels asking, how do I calculate duties and tax on watches from Japan, eBay? I'm thinking about picking up a Seamaster. I don't know, Todd, do you know that? Todd, Seiko Todd.
Yeah, I bought several watches from like Yahoo Japan and some places like that. I don't know. I'm sure you can go online and see what the standard.
There are some tips. There are some tips and tricks to it. First of all, the watch has to be above $800, which I'm assuming is a slam dunk in this case. The value of the watch is broken down into three pieces for the US. It is the strap / bracelet, the movement, and the case. Each of those three components together must equal the cost of the watch, it must equal the cost of the watch.
Right.
Of those, I think, and of course they're taxed at different rates, which doesn't help. Of those, the smallest component is probably going to be the strap, unless
it is. I think it's 15%.
Yeah,
maybe something like that.
But they are taxed at different rates. If you are really desperate, I think the US HTS code is available online, but it will take you quite some time to drill down and find that. There are almost certainly, although I've never looked at it, almost certainly videos out there explaining how you should do it. But the important things are it's broken into three, and it must equal the total cost of the watch that you're importing. Right. And then it's just a matter of jiggling around for one to the other. It's not going to be as much money as you think. Is the other thing to point out. First of all, because it's on any value above the 800, not the total cost, even though they consider the total cost. But it's not as bad as you would think. Something like the last one I did, the Bel Canto, because I brought it on the bezel on the titanium bracelet and the strap. That was $100 or less, I think, in US duties. So it's not as much as you think, and that's for a $4,000 watch. So it's not as much as you think.
Yeah, I paid
I was going to say, I just got a Japan watch like a week and a half ago, and it was $6,500, and I think my whatever tax duties was $120. So, in the grand scheme of the watch you're buying, Japan's a wonderful place to buy from. You might have to do that paperwork, and before I've had to like fill out a form where I had to break it down, but this time I did nothing. It was the most magical Japan thing I ever got. It shipped on like July 1st, and it was in my hand on July 5th, and you know that's through customs and the 4th of July weekend here in the U.S. I'm like, wow, that was fast. But yeah,
I didn't realize. As the only person not in America, I think, on this call, I didn't realize you guys still had duties on things like this. It's bizarre. I wonder if that's why Americans like selling to Americans a lot. With whenever you talk about buying and selling, I notice whenever Americans are looking at selling watches, they're really big on it's Conus price, Conus only. I've always wondered why that was.
Well, plus shipping is brutal from here. The shipping cost is brutal from the US.
Yeah. Well, for me, Pete, I'm a Conus only, and it's because if you get screwed in a foreign country, you're screwed. And I've never been able to recoup anything back from any foreign country sale that I've ever made when someone gypped me. But
even on like eBay or something. Is this through private sale, or is it on like eBay or Chrono you've had issues? Because I've never had any issues on Chrono or eBay.
It used to be eBay, but eBay's probably better about it now because I'm probably talking in the heyday of eBay. But I mean, same deal.
Oh, it's miles now. They've got an international shipping hub that you send it to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I bought a mountain bike from Great Britain before, and I should have known better. It was a fake.
Yeah, you really should have known better.
The price was too good, but my money went over there. Nothing got shipped, and there's nobody to chase down. I mean, I have the guy's address to who I shipped it to, but it's still just a black hole of no one's going to help you. And in the U.S. you're somewhat safe. I mean, at least you can take them on Judge Judy and sue them. So you got away.
The reason why it's interesting, it's an interesting idea because I think what it's kind of led to is it's a soft break, but I think the United States is a slightly different market for watches than everywhere else in the world. In that, everything new is more expensive in America. That Hublot that we were looking up before, fly out to Australia, walk into an AD, slap your credit card down, don't even negotiate at all, pay full tax, and you're still $1,200 better off than if you'd bought it in America. It's the same with every Breitling I look at is normally $1,000 to $2,000 cheaper in Australia after tax than in America before tax. And I wonder if, for whatever reason, America's broken off and become kind of a market unto itself. Things go in, they don't come out, they circulate around the American market, and you end up with an American market pricing system.
And the watch brands seem to have figured out that it doesn't matter what the price is, the American market will pay for it.
Well, and as someone said earlier, just the shipping cost. I mean, I got a really fancy pocket watch from Australia, of all places, like 6 months ago. And I mean, they did some version of overnight mail, which, it got in my hands in like a day and a half. And I think they charged me $30 for it. I mean, I can't even imagine what that would have cost with insurance and shipping from me to them. So it's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
This one comment I just wanted to, where Kent was saying eBay as you covered, and yes, but I feel like eBay's seller fees have gotten obscenely expensive in the last couple of years.
They have gone up. Yeah.
What's going on? It's almost not. I'd rather just take my chances in a watch group. I
think it's about 15% now, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's on par actually with. It's not that far off what Chrono 24 and also Whatnot as well. I've been selling a lot on what. I've done selling lot. I've been on 3 sales on Whatnot. So, but I think Whatnot's where you get the watch deals because there's a lot of watch sellers on there that it's the way to move inventory fast. So you can usually, I think, you still get a good deal. Okay. Von Krul said earlier, one vintage revival that I pine for is the Hamilton PSR quartz. They're a bit pricey, but they're so cool. But they did re-release this, didn't they? But this is the PRS release. So I don't know if you know that, Von Krul, but yeah, they did recently re-release it. They are pricey though, aren't they?
Yes,
$800. Has anyone seen one of these in the flesh, in the metal?
Doesn't Dave have one of those? And he swears that the rest of the case finishing and everything else really does make it worth what it is, despite the little module inside.
I've had one walk past me, so I did see it, and it was nice enough that it caught my eye. But I didn't. I didn't do the watch guy thing and be like, "Ooh, let me see that." So yes, but not really.
Yeah, the case is really nice on them. They did a really good job with it, and that's a lot of metal too.
Yeah, it's just when you look at it, it's like being back in the '80s and math class, and the kid next to you has a watch. It's like a $15 watch. It's tough to justify that price.
Well, the one that killed me, which I think I still have to be wrong somehow, but remember GP made that ceramic casquette 2.0, and then like 6 months or a year later, they made a YSL. I can't even say the fancy person name, but they made like a YSL like rebrand of it. It's the same watch, except on the inside it says like YSL, and I sort of feel like everyone who bought that other limited edition would be really upset if, all of a sudden they made this limited edition and then they sort of made a new limited edition that looks exactly like the other, except that it's got a different case back.
Just remember to ask Dave Sharp next week if he's on, because he's got the casquette.
Yeah,
he loves
it. That sounds like that sounds like a parting slap across the back of the head from Caring Group as UN and GP were running away from the group.
Yeah, because I said I like the watch, and I like limited editions, so I would be kind of, not sour, but I definitely wouldn't like it. You'd just be like, wow, so it went from 500 to now kind of 1,000 because there's 500 new ones that are a little different.
Yeah.
Oh.
One thing oh wow.
Thank you, Muhammad Ali. Yes.
Oh, Muhammad, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Muhammad's trying to show off the good karma. He just got a couple new watches recently, but I know just last week he got looked like he got a new Explorer. So congrats, Muhammad.
Yeah, thank you for the very, very nice super chat. Okay, so Sam's coming in to back us up. What do you think about the new colourful Formex releases and why some brands are ashamed to call their pink watches pink? And use the names like Salmon, Aquastar did it recently. So let's have a look at this. I didn't actually think they were released yet. I got a press release about the watches, but did they must have released?
Well,
here we go.
Fratello released a Deep Star 2 pink salmon, which is definitely pink and not salmon. But the Formex are lovely.
Yeah. Oh, we're having a fit here. The Splash limited edition.
There you go. Yep.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Wow, they are vibrant, aren't they? They are not the pastel shades that we've been used to seeing.
I like them better in the not PVD case.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm on that as well.
Because these are renders, aren't they? So I wonder what they look like. I mean, this appears to be a render.
I love it on the steel bracelet even better. That is all good.
What's drawing you to it, Todd? Just the use of color, or and which one?
Yeah, I'm torn between that yellow and that blue. I know everybody's tired of that blue, but I still love that color.
Yeah,
and I know Formex is very well. I've never held one, but they're very well regarded for their case manufacturing. So this would be I would love to try that on. I can tell you that right now.
Formex are very well made, whether it's a steel case or a forged carbon case. They are very well made. Their designs may not be adventurous, shall we say,
Yeah, well, that's why I like them.
and really the Essence 39, 41, 43 are probably the most conservative design that they have. The Reef GMT is a little more adventurous.
Well, their original ones were crazy, weren't they?
Yeah.
Like their original, like Formex version 1. I don't even know if they still make those ones, but they were some of the craziest watches.
It looks a little bit like a
Reef.
race car, if that's the one you're thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Formex actually, the brand, doesn't that go back to like the 90s or the early 2000s? They've been around for a long time.
I don't think so. And I'd have to listen to the guy Raphael was on the Scottish Watches podcast last Monday. His family has been in watchmaking for generations, but I think the Formex brand is relatively new.
Yeah.
Because it comes from Dexel.
So those ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, so this
That's
is
ugly.
a 2010. This is 2010 version. Yeah, these are the crazy ones.
Yeah, when they first came out, they went into this whole kind of Red Bull extreme sports kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I thought they went back quite a long way.
Thank you.
Predated micro brands. I'll put it that way.
They predated micro brands. Looking at the chat, Kent is saying 1999, which feels about right.
Yeah.
But previous to that, they were a case manufacturer for other companies, correct?
That's
Or-
Dexel. That's the
Okay.
father's company.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have a history in this.
But the grandfather was doing stuff with watches as well. There's a lot of hidden family businesses in Switzerland.
Yeah.
I wonder if they went dormant then. Did they go? Were they just knocking these out for 10 years before they really? Because they really, what would you say, like 3 or 4 years ago, they really came with a bang, didn't they? With this,
Yeah.
with the essence.
Yeah.
I think they probably just hummed along, just barely staying alive. Maybe a generation change within the company, but I think it also probably indicates that if you don't market yourself, you don't exist. And what we've seen is a storm of marketing. People, lots of watches going out for people to look at. The owners turning up on every second podcast. All that sort of stuff. And it's within our little baby community, it's actually pretty cheap to look a lot bigger than you really are.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're not very big, but for those going to wind up New York, Formex should be there. Raphael, when I forget his last name, is always there. So it's a good chance to see the modern product, and the modern product is very, very impressive.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of when I can't say I fell in love with Formex, but that's when I kind of made the decision I was going to buy one, because I went up to wind up last year in the New York and spoke to Raphael, and it's just so nice when a company is actually nice to you. And I mean,
Yep.
Todd was talking about RGM, and I mean, Roland Murphy, when I saw him, he was kind of a jerk. So, I said it made me not want to buy a watch from him. And, when a pocket watch guy comes and talks to you about pocket watches, I kind of want your eyeballs not to look like, "Will you go away, sir?" And that's pretty much what his eyes were. And, over at Formex, they just wanted to give you a big hug. I mean, he took me through his bracelet and showed me all the integrations and how the clasp works. And then, I just said, like, wow, this is a great bunch of guys. And I said, when they released a model that was kind of neat, I jumped on. I liked it since.
They are helping quite a few other companies allegedly with adjustable straps and bracelets and so on. Their grandfather patent on that adjustable clasp is forcing people to talk to them, I think.
It's funny that companies that make there must be a couple of watch companies that make most of their money actually by licensing out technologies.
Oh, there's more than a couple, yeah.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere once that the majority of Ulysse Nardin income actually comes from people licensing their thousands of patents.
And they've got some amazing tech, haven't they?
Yeah, and the watches themselves are a sideline.
That's interesting because I asked FX is the CEO there, Uli Snadan, about this because they invented this grind. It's called the grinder system, which I'm not convinced that's a good name for it. But it basically it oscillates in any movement of your wrist, sideways or whatever, or up and down, or it actually winds it kind of like a weight that. And I actually asked him at the time, I'm like, wow, this could revolutionize most industries, other than, the self-winding technology, not just for watches, but they were kind of keeping close-lipped at that time about it.
The trouble with patents is that they run out.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be very difficult if you've got a strong, and I use the term grandfather patent, but if you've got the one patent and your lawyers wrote it properly, you can be coining it for 20 years. And after that, you've got to struggle if you haven't kept your innovation train going.
Well, yeah, this is why Mickey Mouse changes his look every so often, so they can keep.
Well, that's also trademarking, which is a different time period. So, copyright and trademarking is a little bit different, but intellectual property is, 20 years.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
Except for the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, because Johnson & Johnson have been in the news, haven't they, recently about their TB medicine that they tweaked the formula on a few years ago and extended the patent another 7 years, but they seem to have come round on that one. Well, that's great. I'm just checking to make sure we didn't miss any. Did anybody notice another question that I missed?
Sure.
I suppose we didn't really ask Sam's question of why aren't they calling pink watches pink?
I'm in favor.
Of just saying pink.
That's just good old-fashioned marketing. That's what they're doing. They're appealing to the masses.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on how pink the pink is. I mean, if it's the moon swatch Venus and it's pink, I mean, I hope they call it pink. If they do kind of make that bronze pink, I'll let them get away with salmon. But yeah.
What's his name? The guy, I can't remember the actor. The actor for this Barbie movie, he was wearing that pink tag, and it looked pretty cool.
I wrote. I ended up writing an Instagram about the Fratello by Aquastar, which they called the Pink Salmon Limited Edition, and I just went, "No salmon ever looked like this. Just call it pink." And Fratello actually commented in the Instagram, "Oh, we think it is salmon, and we like salmon. It's light and playful." No, guys, it's pink.
That's farm raised. That's farm raised salmon.
They were defending themselves, but it's pink. It's not salmon.
Yeah, that's definitely no salmon looks like that. If unless it's been genetically engineered.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's Chernobyl salmon.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I'd
salmon.
I wish I'd thought of that.
Some GMO salmon.
Yeah, maybe this is some sort of Central European, post-apocalyptic salmon.
I agree. That
case is awesome.
If I see it in real life, I might change my mind. But the other thing is they've got some kind of patented bidirectional decompression bezel. So first of all, no one's ever going to wear it on a dive because it's bidirectional. So why do you need a decompression bezel? But there's no instructions on the website how that bezel works. So I hope you get instructions with it when you buy the watch.
Yeah, because it still moves. It's not two separate pieces, is it? It's still...
It's hard to say from the pictures. I'm going to have to try and see one in real life.
Yeah, so this was the Aquastar was the brand that was revived by Synchron Group that own Isofrane, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, handsome watch.
That's a good looking watch.
Yeah.
You got to live in Miami to wear that watch, though.
Well, certainly in that color, yes.
In that color, yeah.
Yeah.
Soy salmon, yeah.
No, look, soy salmon. Yeah, no, I don't mind actually.
Lab-grown salmon.
Well, that's awesome. Well, well, thanks everyone. Did anyone else have any final points before we leave? No.
See you all next week.
Yes, yeah. See you all next week. Thank you so much for all of the questions. Very much appreciated. Thank you to the panel, and we'll see you all next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.